Close your eyes. Allow the weight of the day to gently slide from your shoulders. Feel the chair or the bed beneath you, supporting you completely. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be. This moment is a sanctuary, a quiet harbor just for you. Bring your awareness to your breathing, that soft, steady rhythm that has accompanied you through every moment of your life. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Do not try to change it, simply notice it. The cool air entering, bringing with it a sense of calm, and the warm air leaving, carrying away any lingering tension, any scattered thoughts. Imagine each breath as a soft wave, washing over the shores of your mind, leaving it smoother, quieter, more peaceful with each pass. You are safe. You are comfortable. And you are ready to listen to a story. A story about time, about endings, and about the dream of new beginnings. Let your mind drift, and consider the great, silent cycles of the world. Think of the seasons, an ancient and unfailing promise. The tender, hopeful green of a spring shoot, pushing its way through the cold, dark earth towards the warmth of the sun. The full, deep, languid abundance of summer, a world saturated in light and life. Then the slow, graceful letting go of autumn, the brilliant flash of gold and crimson, a beautiful surrender, as the trees release what they no longer need. And finally, the deep, quiet rest of winter, the world asleep under a blanket of white, gathering its strength in the silence, preparing for the inevitable return of spring. This cycle of birth, growth, decline, and rest is woven into the very fabric of our universe. We see it in the life of a star, born from a cosmic cloud, shining for billions of years, and finally, returning its elements to the cosmos to seed new stars, new worlds. We see it in the life of a single flower, which blooms in glory and then withers, its seeds scattered by the wind to find new soil. For all of history, humanity has understood this rhythm. We have built our lives, our philosophies, our cultures around this fundamental truth. That life is precious precisely because it is finite. That endings are not just a cessation, but a transformation. A return to the earth, a rejoining with the elements from which we came, a completion of a beautiful, natural arc. We find our immortality not in our own flesh, but in the children we raise, the stories we tell, the love we share, the gardens we plant. A legacy that flows onward, like a river, long after the individual drop has returned to the sea. But within the human heart, there has always been another current, a quiet but persistent question. What if? What if the end was not an end at all? What if the river of life could be paused, its waters held in perfect, crystalline stillness, until the landscape ahead was ready for its flow to resume? This question, once the domain of poets and mystics, began to find a new voice in the quiet, sterile hum of the laboratory. As our understanding of biology deepened, we learned to mend the body, to fight disease, to extend the healthy years of a human life beyond what our ancestors could have ever imagined. And with each victory against mortality, the ultimate question grew louder. What if we could conquer not just disease, but death itself? This is where our story begins tonight. It is the story of cryonics. The dream of freezing the human body, or just the brain, at the moment of legal death, in the hope of awaiting a future where technology is powerful enough to repair, rejuvenate, and revive it. Before we delve deeper into this audacious proposition, consider for a moment the cultural landscape that has cultivated such a dream. We live in an era obsessed with optimization, with pushing boundaries, with extending every aspect of human capability. From performance-enhancing drugs in sports to increasingly sophisticated prosthetics, from genetic engineering targeting diseases to artificial intelligence that promises to augment our cognitive abilities, the drive to transcend biological limitations is a defining characteristic of the 21st century. The pursuit of healthy longevity, is no longer a fringe aspiration but a burgeoning industry attracting billions in investment. Companies like Altos Labs, backed by billionaires, are pouring resources into cellular rejuvenation programming, aiming to reverse or halt the aging process itself. Google's Calico Labs is another titan in this arena, dedicated to understanding and combating aging-related diseases. The very existence of these ventures signals a societal shift. Death, once an unquestioned inevitability, is increasingly being framed as a problem to be solved, a disease to be cured. Cryonics, in this context, is not an outlier but rather an extreme, yet logical, extension of this profound cultural current. This pervasive narrative of human triumph over natural limits is constantly reinforced by scientific breakthroughs that once seemed like science fiction. CRISPR gene editing, for instance, allows us to precisely edit DNA, offering the tantalizing possibility of eradicating inherited diseases. Advances in artificial organs, such as lab-grown kidneys or hearts, offer hope for those awaiting transplants. The development of mRNA vaccines, deployed with unprecedented speed and efficacy during the COVID-19 pandemic, showcased humanity's remarkable capacity for rapid scientific innovation when faced with a global threat. Each of these achievements, each headline proclaiming a new medical marvel, chips away at the perceived invincibility of natural processes, bolstering the belief that even death might eventually succumb to human ingenuity. The economic implications of this drive for extended life are also immense. The global anti-aging market, encompassing everything from skincare to advanced medical treatments, is projected to reach hundreds of billions of dollars in the coming years. This financial engine further fuels research and development, creating a self-perpetuating cycle where the pursuit of longevity is not just a scientific endeavor but a massive economic one. The promise of not just living longer, but living better for longer, resonates deeply in societies grappling with an aging population and the associated healthcare challenges. Now let us return to the core of cryonics. Imagine, for a moment, the hope that fuels this dream. Picture a person in the final stages of a disease that is, for our time, incurable. They are surrounded by loved ones, but their time is drawing to a close. The story, according to the natural cycle, is ending. But for this person, there is a different possibility. A choice to not let this be the final chapter. A choice to place a profound and unwavering faith in the ingenuity of generations yet to come. This faith is not entirely unfounded. Consider the history of medicine itself. Polio, once a terrifying scourge, was effectively eradicated by vaccines. Smallpox, which killed hundreds of millions over centuries, now exists only in laboratories. Organ transplantation, once unthinkable, is now a routine, life-saving procedure. Even in the realm of cryopreservation, breakthroughs have occurred. Human embryos have been successfully frozen, stored for years, and then thawed and brought to term, resulting in healthy births. Sperm and eggs are routinely cryopreserved, allowing individuals to defer parenthood or preserve fertility before medical treatments. While the complexity of an entire adult human body, particularly the brain, is orders of magnitude greater than a single cell or embryo, these existing successes serve as powerful psychological anchors for the cryonics community, suggesting that the fundamental principles are sound, and the challenges are merely engineering problems awaiting future solutions. The process, as envisioned by its proponents, is one of ultimate care and precision. At the moment the heart stops, the legal definition of death, a team works quickly, not to mourn, but to preserve. This first response, or stabilization phase, is critical. The aim is to minimize ischemic damage, the damage caused by lack of oxygen and blood flow to the cells. Ice baths are used to rapidly cool the body, and cardiopulmonary support machines, like those used during surgery, are employed to maintain some circulation while specialized medications are administered. These medications often include anticoagulants to prevent blood clotting and neuroprotectants to mitigate brain damage. The rapid deployment of these initial steps highlights the time-sensitive nature of successful cryopreservation, emphasizing that every minute counts in preserving cellular integrity. The blood, that river of life, is then replaced with a special solution, a cryoprotectant designed to prevent the formation of ice crystals. This is the crucial step, and perhaps the most technically challenging. Water, when it freezes, expands and forms sharp, jagged crystals that would shred the delicate architecture of the cells, especially the impossibly intricate network of the brain. The goal is not to freeze, but to vitrify. To turn the water within the cells into a smooth, stable, glass-like state, locking every molecule, every synapse, every delicate connection in place. Vitrification is a state achieved by lowering the temperature of a liquid so rapidly that ice crystals don't have time to form. Instead, the liquid becomes extremely viscous and eventually solidifies into an amorphous, glass-like state. Think of glass itself. It's an amorphous solid, not a crystalline one. For biological tissue, achieving vitrification without causing excessive toxicity from the cryoprotectants is the holy grail. Current cryoprotectant solutions are complex cocktails of chemicals, often including glycerol, DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide, and other agents, each playing a role in reducing the freezing point of water and preventing ice formation. These chemicals, while essential for vitrification, are also inherently toxic to cells at high concentrations. This toxicity is one of the major hurdles in current cryonics, and researchers are constantly working to develop new, less toxic, and more effective cryoprotective agents. This is an active area of research, with ongoing studies exploring novel compounds and delivery methods to improve cellular viability post-vitrification. The body is then cooled further, slowly, carefully, over days, down to the unimaginable cold of liquid nitrogen, -196 degrees Celsius, -321 degrees Fahrenheit. This slow cooling allows for a more controlled vitrification process, reducing thermal stress on the tissues. The final destination is a large, silent vessel, a dewar, where it will rest in a state of indefinite suspension. Time, for this body, has effectively stopped. The relentless process of decay is halted. The biological clock is paused. It is a quiet, timeless, deep cold sleep, an act of passage not into the unknown of death, but into the potential of a distant future. This deep cold storage is maintained indefinitely, as long as the necessary funds are available. This brings us to a significant practical consideration: the economics of cryonics. The cost of whole-body cryopreservation typically ranges from $200,000 to $280,000, while neuropreservation, preserving only the brain, can be less, around $80,000 to $120,000. These are substantial sums, often covered by life insurance policies specifically designated for this purpose. The ongoing maintenance costs, though less per year, accrue over decades and centuries, meaning that the financial sustainability of cryonics organizations is crucial. They often operate on endowment models, investing funds to generate returns that cover long-term storage and operational expenses. The financial health and long-term viability of these organizations, such as Alcor Life Extension Foundation and the Cryonics Institute, are subjects of ongoing discussion and scrutiny within the community and by external observers. As of late 2023, Alcor reports having over 200 patients in cryopreservation and thousands of members who have made arrangements for future cryopreservation. The Cryonics Institute similarly reports hundreds of patients and thousands of members. These numbers, though small in the grand scheme of global population, represent a significant and growing commitment to this audacious dream. The dream is that this is not a tomb, but a waiting room. The belief is that the essence of a person, their memories, their personality, their consciousness, is encoded in the physical structure and chemistry of the brain. And if that structure can be preserved with perfect fidelity, then it is not truly lost. It is simply dormant. The information that makes you is still there, waiting. This concept of consciousness as an emergent property of the brain's physical structure is a cornerstone of modern neuroscience. While the exact mechanisms of consciousness remain one of the greatest unsolved mysteries, the prevailing scientific view is that it arises from the complex interactions of billions of neurons and trillions of synaptic connections. The hope of cryonics is that if this intricate hardware, the brain, can be perfectly preserved, then the software, consciousness, memories, personality, can eventually be rebooted. Recent advances in brain mapping, such as the Human Brain Project and the Brain Initiative, are painstakingly attempting to map neural circuits at unprecedented resolution, inching closer to understanding this complex architecture. While a complete connectome, a full map of all neural connections, of a human brain is still decades away, the progress in this field fuels the cryonics belief that if we can map it, we can eventually restore it. Imagine that future. 100, 200, perhaps 1,000 years from now. A world of unimaginable technological advancement. A world where medicine has evolved beyond recognition. Imagine nanotechnology, microscopic machines that can travel through the bloodstream, repairing cellular damage one molecule at a time. They could mend the damage caused by the original disease, reverse the effects of aging, and even meticulously repair any imperfections sustained during the vitrification process itself. The concept of nanotechnology, initially popularized by figures like K. Eric Drexler in his seminal work, Engines of Creation, 1986, envisions self-replicating nanobots capable of building and repairing at the molecular level. While Drexler's original vision remains largely theoretical, the field of nanotechnology has made significant practical strides. We now have nanoparticles used in drug delivery, targeted cancer therapies, and advanced materials. Imagine these current, rudimentary forms of nanotechnology evolving into sophisticated, nanomedicine, capable of intricate cellular repair. This leap requires not just technological progress but a fundamental understanding of how to program and control matter at an atomic scale, a challenge that is still monumental. However, the exponential growth of computational power, Moore's law, even if slowing, still provides a framework for future development, and the rapid advancements in fields like artificial intelligence and robotics make such a future seem less like pure fantasy and more like an extreme extrapolation of current trends. In this future, the silent vessel is opened. The process of rewarming, as complex and delicate as the cooling, begins. The microscopic machines do their work. The cells are revitalized. And then, one day, a heart that has been still for centuries begins to beat again. Eyes that have been closed for generations flicker open. A mind, a consciousness stored perfectly in the preserved structure of the brain, reawakens. This vision of reanimation is perhaps the most compelling and cinematic aspect of the cryonics dream. It taps into deep-seated human desires, to defy death, to witness history, to experience a future beyond imagination. It speaks to a profound optimism about humanity's eventual scientific prowess and ethical commitment. For many, the gamble is worth it. What is there to lose, they argue, if one is already legally dead? The worst-case scenario is a permanent state of non-existence, which would have happened anyway. The best-case scenario is a second chance at life, a literal resurrection by science. To its believers, this is the ultimate act of hope. A triumph of life over oblivion. A chance to see the wonders of the future, to explore new worlds, to perhaps even be reunited with other loved ones who made the same journey. It is a refusal to accept that our current biological limitations must be the final word. It is a bridge, built of science and hope, thrown across the chasm of time, from a known death to a possible second life. It feels noble, brave, the next logical step in humanity's long quest to overcome the frailties of the body and extend the reach of the mind. This dream resonates strongly with a modern mindset that views problems as solvable and progress as inevitable. It embodies the spirit of exploration and discovery that has driven humanity for millennia, now turned inward to conquer the ultimate frontier, our own mortality. It's a testament to the enduring human spirit that even in the face of our most profound limitation, we continue to seek a way forward, a glimmer of light beyond the encroaching darkness. The appeal of cryonics, therefore, is multifaceted. For some, it is a personal hedge against the finality of death, a desperate hope for more time with loved ones or to complete unfinished work. For others, it is a philosophical statement, a rejection of biological determinism and an affirmation of human agency and scientific potential. And for a growing number, it is simply a pragmatic choice, an investment in a highly speculative but potentially infinitely rewarding future. It aligns with the futurist movements that see humanity on the cusp of radical transformation, whether through technological singularity or radical life extension. As you ponder this profound human endeavor, this daring leap of faith into the unknown future, consider the implications for our understanding of life, death, and what it means to be human. Is this the ultimate expression of human ingenuity, or a dangerous defiance of nature's wisdom? This story is not just about technology, it's about philosophy, ethics, and our deepest fears and aspirations. Now, as we conclude this first part of our journey, I invite you to reflect on what you've heard. This story is just beginning, and its power to inspire thought and conversation depends on its reach. If you found this introduction compelling, if it sparked your curiosity or challenged your perspectives, please consider subscribing to the channel for future parts of this story. Your subscription, your likes, and your shares help these discussions reach a wider audience, fostering critical thinking about some of humanity's most profound questions. By helping this content spread, you contribute to a more informed and engaged global conversation. We have explored the incandescent dream, the audacious hope that fuels the cryonics movement. We have seen it bathed in the shimmering glow of future technologies, a vision of scientific resurrection. But now, let us listen to the other side of this story. Let us turn our attention from the bright promise of the future, and consider the deep, cold, silent present of that vessel. Let us entertain a different perspective, one that speaks not of a second life, but of a chemical burial. This perspective is not born from a lack of imagination, but from a profound humility in the face of nature's complexity and the current limitations of our understanding. This critique begins by scrutinizing the very foundation of the cryonics promise, the claim of perfect preservation. While vitrification aims to prevent destructive ice crystals, the process itself is still a profound trauma at the molecular and cellular level. Can we be truly certain that the delicate, quantum-level information that may underpin consciousness is perfectly preserved? Imagine a snowflake, a perfect, intricate crystal of ice. You can photograph it, you can map its every facet. But you cannot capture the process of its formation, the unique journey of a single water molecule through the cold air. Can a preserved brain, no matter how perfect its structure, ever be more than a perfect photograph of a snowflake? A beautiful, intricate structure with no memory of how it came to be? Is it possible that the very act of pausing the symphony, of stopping the music, shatters the instruments forever, even if they look perfectly intact? The scientific community, by and large, remains highly skeptical of current cryonics capabilities. While many acknowledge the theoretical possibility of future reanimation if perfect preservation could be achieved, The consensus is that current methods are far from this ideal. Leading neuroscientists and bioethicists often point to the immense, irreversible damage sustained during the cryopreservation process itself, particularly the toxicity of cryoprotectants and the structural stress of cooling. Dr. Kenneth Hayworth, a neuroscientist and president of the Brain Preservation Foundation, while an advocate for better brain preservation techniques, has openly stated that current cryonics methods likely cause irreversible damage to the brain's fine structure, which is crucial for retaining memories and identity. He and others contend that what is being preserved today is a very damaged brain, a snapshot that is far from the perfect fidelity required for a meaningful revival. The analogy often used is that freezing a computer with current methods is like throwing it off a skyscraper and then hoping to reboot it after a few centuries. The data might be theoretically there, but the hardware is fundamentally compromised. This challenge isn't merely academic. Consider the implications for identity. If consciousness and personality are inextricably linked to the intricate patterns of neural connections and biochemical activity, what happens if those patterns are subtly, or even significantly, altered during the vitrification and subsequent rewarming processes? Could the revived individual truly be you, or merely a highly similar, but ultimately distinct copy? This delves into deep philosophical waters, echoing thought experiments like the ship of Theseus or teleporter paradoxes. If every atom is replaced, is it the same object? If every neuron is damaged and repaired, is it the same mind? These aren't just abstract musings. They strike at the very heart of what it means to survive death. Furthermore, the scale of the challenge is often underestimated. We are not just talking about preserving individual cells, but billions of highly interconnected neurons, each with thousands of synapses, all functioning within a complex, dynamic, and fragile ecosystem. The brain consumes approximately 20% of the body's oxygen and glucose, despite being only about 2% of its weight, underscoring its immense metabolic activity. Halting this activity, replacing its blood supply, and then cooling it to cryogenic temperatures without critical damage to the incredibly fine structures, microtubules, synaptic clefts, dendritic spines, is a feat that current technology cannot reliably guarantee. Every fraction of a second of warm ischemia, lack of blood flow at body temperature, causes irreversible damage. The time between legal death and the initiation of cryoprotective perfusion, known as the washout interval, is a race against cellular decay that current systems struggle to win perfectly. And let us consider that unimaginable future. We place our faith in a generation we will never know, a people whose values, ethics, and priorities may be completely alien to our own. Will they have the technology to revive us? Perhaps. But a more profound question is, will they want it? Will they see these silent vessels from the past as a sacred duty, a responsibility to their ancestors? Or will they see them as relics of a bygone era, a curious but ultimately irrelevant artifact? Or worse, a resource? A collection of biological data to be studied? We are sending a message in a bottle into an ocean of time, with no guarantee that anyone will be there to read it, or that they will understand the language in which it is written. This future shock problem is a significant, often downplayed, aspect of the cryonics gamble. Consider how dramatically our own society has changed in just a single century. The early 20th century, with its horse-drawn carriages and nascent radio technology, is almost unrecognizable to someone living today with ubiquitous internet, artificial intelligence, and global connectivity. Now, project that change over 2, 5, or even 10 centuries. The culture, ethics, social structures, economic systems, and even the biological makeup of future humanity could be vastly different. The ethical considerations are profound. If revival becomes possible, What are the rights of a reanimated individual? Are they citizens of the future society? Do they have claims to property or lineage from their past life? What if the future society faces resource scarcity and views reanimated individuals as an unnecessary burden? Or conversely, what if they become a source of biological material for research, or even a form of cheap labor, devoid of the social protections afforded to their native population? This isn't mere dystopian fantasy. Throughout history, societies have struggled with how to integrate newcomers, and individuals from a drastically different past would present unprecedented challenges. The Frankenstein factor is not just about the horror of creation, but the ethical quandaries of what happens next to the created being. Current events offer some sobering reflections on humanity's capacity for long-term commitment and altruism. We struggle to address climate change, a clear and present danger to our planet, despite overwhelming scientific consensus. We see geopolitical conflicts driven by short-term interests and ancient grievances. Can we truly expect a far future society, facing its own unique challenges and priorities, to invest immense resources, scientific, economic, and emotional, into reviving individuals from a distant past, especially if those individuals require extensive and expensive medical intervention and psychological support to adapt to a vastly different world? It's a question of intergenerational responsibility on an unprecedented scale, with no guarantee of compliance. But let us imagine, for a moment, that they succeed. That revival is possible. Let us consider the experience of the person who awakens. They open their eyes not to the familiar faces of their loved ones, but to the faces of strangers in a world they cannot comprehend. Everyone they have ever known, every friend, every family member, every pet is gone. Not just dead, but turned to dust centuries ago. The language they speak, the culture they inhabit, the very way they think and perceive the world may be so different as to be utterly incomprehensible. It would be the most profound and absolute loneliness imaginable. An exile in time. You would be a ghost, a living fossil, a remnant of a lost world. Would this be a second life, or a second, more terrible kind of death, a death of connection, a death of belonging? A life sentence of unutterable isolation. The dream of reunion with loved ones fades into the harsh reality that you would be utterly, completely alone. The psychological impact of such a revival is perhaps the most overlooked, yet terrifying, aspect of the cryonics dream. Consider Rip Van Winkle syndrome, writ large. Even individuals who experience decades-long comas and awaken face immense difficulties reintegrating into a changed world, let alone centuries. They often suffer from severe depression, anxiety, and a profound sense of loss. Imagine the cognitive dissonance, the sensory overload, the grief for a vanished world, the incomprehension of new technologies and social norms. Would the human mind, evolved to function within a relatively stable cultural and temporal framework, be able to cope? Or would the revived individual simply shatter under the weight of such profound displacement? Therapists and psychologists would be faced with an entirely new category of patient, the chronically displaced. This brings us to a deeper question. The question of meaning. For millennia, we have understood that the finite nature of our lives gives them a precious, poignant beauty. Knowing that our time is limited is what gives it value. It is the engine of our ambition, the source of our urgency to create, to love, to experience, to make our mark. Does the parent cherish their child's laughter any less because they know it will not last forever? Or do they cherish it more? Does the artist work with less passion, or with more, knowing their time to create is finite? The awareness of the coming winter is what makes the beauty of the autumn leaves so breathtaking. This perspective argues that striving for an endless existence might paradoxically diminish the value of life itself. If life is infinite, Does it lose its urgency, its preciousness, its edge? Would goals lose their meaning if there were always tomorrow, or next century, to achieve them? This is a core philosophical debate that long predates cryonics, explored by thinkers from ancient philosophers to modern existentialists. The concept of memento mori, remember you must die, has historically served not as a morbid obsession, but as a powerful impetus for living a meaningful, purposeful life in the time one has. The path of cryonics seeks to remove the winter. But in doing so, does it risk devaluing the autumn, the summer, the spring? It is an attempt to step outside of the great, natural cycle of life and death, of decay and renewal, that has governed all life on this planet for billions of years. When a tree falls in the forest, it is not an end. It becomes a nurse log. It decays, and its nutrients feed the soil, providing sustenance for new mosses, new fungi, new saplings. It continues to participate in the great, ongoing story of the forest. A body in a doer, however, participates in nothing. It is removed from the cycle. It does not decay. It does not return to the earth. It does not nourish new life. It is held in perfect, sterile, isolated stasis. A chemical burial. Forever removed from the planet's embrace, from the flow of time, from the grand, interconnected web of life and death. It is an act of profound separation. This point touches on our ecological interconnectedness. Human bodies, like all biological entities, are part of a vast nutrient cycle. Upon death, our organic matter returns to the earth, feeding microorganisms, enriching the soil, and contributing to the continuation of life in countless forms. Cryonics, in this view, is an unnatural secession from this fundamental process, a form of biological hoarding that disrupts the natural flow. It reflects a human-centric view that prioritizes individual longevity above the collective ecosystem, echoing broader environmental concerns about humanity's impact on natural cycles. Perhaps true immortality is not found in the preservation of the self, but in the surrender of the self to something larger. To the continuation of our species, to the health of our planet, to the flow of ideas and love through time. Perhaps our legacy is not meant to be our own reawakened consciousness, but the echoes we leave behind in the world and in the hearts of others. The river does not live on by being frozen, but by flowing into the sea, becoming part of the vastness of the ocean and the endless cycle of rain and renewal. This alternative view of immortality emphasizes the transcendent rather than the personal. It suggests that our true legacy lies in our contributions to humanity, our cultural impact, the love we share, and the ideas we propagate. Think of the enduring influence of figures like Shakespeare, Marie Curie, or Martin Luther King Jr. Their physical bodies are long gone, but their impact on human civilization continues to reverberate, shaping our present and future. This form of immortality is not about extending individual biological life but about extending one's influence and meaning through time. It is a form of collective remembrance and ongoing societal impact, fundamentally different from the individualistic aspiration of cryonics. Current public discourse around death and dying often grapples with these tensions. The rise of hospice care and the death-positive movement, for instance, advocates for embracing death as a natural and meaningful part of life, focusing on quality of life and final moments rather than aggressive, often futile, attempts to prolong it. These movements stand in stark contrast to the cryonics ethos, highlighting a fundamental divide in how society views and approaches mortality. While some seek to conquer death, others seek to reconcile with it, to find peace and dignity within its embrace. As you drift now, towards the gentle shores of sleep, let these thoughts wash over you without judgment. The bright dream of a second dawn in a distant future, and the quiet wisdom of returning to the earth, of completing a natural cycle. There is no single answer here, only a deep and profound mystery. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own breath, the rise and fall of your own chest. Each breath is a small cycle of receiving and letting go. Each night, as you fall asleep, you perform your own act of surrender, of letting go of the conscious self, trusting that you will be renewed and restored by the morning. Sleep is our own small, nightly participation in the great rhythm of rest and reawakening. So let go now. Let the questions fade. Let the stories dissolve. Feel yourself as part of the vast, quiet, breathing world. You are safe. You are at peace. Surrender to the deep, healing wisdom of rest. Sleep now, rest deeply, and allow yourself to simply be a part of the gentle, timeless flow.